Y'all really trying it with me today. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna let you see this guy's quote. Check this out. So he went back and looked at the other video. Cool. And then he said, Chap read a quote that basically said that Christianity is an indigenous religion to Africa. I did read that quote. Let me show you where that quote comes from. Here it is from John and Beatty. He says, Christianity in Africa is so old that it can rightly be described as an indigenous, traditional, and African religion. Long before the start of Islam in the 7th century, Christianity was well established all over North Africa, Egypt, and parts of the Sudan and Ethiopia. So when you read something like this, you can ask yourself, why would he make that quote? Then me, somebody like me, I'm going to go buy the book. I'm going to go look up the book and see why would this person make this argument. But what I'm not going to do is just summarily dismiss the argument simply because it disagrees or destroys something that I believe. So let's dig into this a little bit. Now, we understand that the origin of the Christian religion began in Jerusalem. The church was birthed out in Pentecost. But from the beginning, and we said this in the last video, there were people there from parts of Africa, particularly Libya, Cyrene, and Egypt. We also know that Ethiopia is a place that has never been colonized. We read about people like the Ethiopian eunuchs all the way in Acts 8. So the argument that we're trying to make is we're not talking about one or two people. We're not talking about a dozen people. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who became Christians on the African continent that had nothing to do with colonization. We are making the argument that from the very beginning, Christianity spread directly into Africa well before it was established in Europe. And then what really irritates me is in light of all of the evidence, or rather in spite of all of the evidence, he begins to make the nonsensical argument that Christianity was beat into our ancestors. Where is this found? This is the kind of stuff that people hear on Beyonce's internet and then they just start repeating because it sounds good. But they don't actually look up, and they never present any sources to actually prove that argument because they can't, because it's not true, because it is absolutely false. All you have to do is read the words of our ancestors. Why is it that we will take the words, this thought process actually comes from white Europeans? So you're trying to combat the thought that Christianity is a white man's religion by using white people's thought processes. It's why don't you listen and read the slave narratives? And the slaves will tell you themselves. We understand the difference between the Christianity of the slave master and the Christianity that's found in the Bible. The slave masters understood that too, which is why they gave them a redacted Bible, because they understood this. Christians, or slaves who called themselves Christians but were really not, they did not want slaves to become Christians. Why? Because you can't enslave a Christian. The law would not allow you to enslave a baptized Christian. So they wanted to use the Bible to control Christians, but not convert Christians. There is a big difference. Please show me some actual evidence that says that slave masters wanted to convert Christians. They wanted to abuse, not use, they wanted to abuse the Bible to keep Christians in line, or to keep slaves in line, but they did not want to convert them. They did not want them baptized. They were not discipling them into becoming Christians or anything like that. And they certainly were not beating it into our ancestors. This is the kind of argument that people make when they say stuff like, oh, the Ethiopian Bible is the oldest Bible in the world. No, it's not. The Latin Vulgate is older. The Codex Sinaiticus is older. But people hear this stuff and it sounds good, and so they just run with it. I'm asking you, first, please don't mistake my passion for trying to be disrespectful. But I'm tired of people getting on the internet and making these nonsensical arguments. I'm tired of you lying on my ancestors. I'm tired of you disrespecting my ancestors as if they did not have any idea of what was going on, that they couldn't tell the difference between the Christianity that was given to them by the slave master and the Christianity of Christ, as if they had never heard of Jesus Christ prior to slavery. Let me go ahead and give you some doggone information. I'm going to start with this one, and I can't see it because the TikTok got the dumb comment in the way until you finish recording it. But this is when talking about King Mansa Musa and the Mali Empire in West Africa. And he talks about that there were that they had the presence of Christians in the Mali Empire in the early 14th century. Let me give you the end of that quote. So there you have it, and you have the primary source. And it says, hey, look, we try to go in there and get the gold from the Christians, but then the gold stops producing. When we stop going in there, the gold starts producing again. But the point is that he is giving evidence that there were Christians in his empire prior to colonization and slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. Now, my biggest and strongest piece of, not my strongest, but one of my strongest pieces of evidence, you're going to love this one. All right, here we go. I'm going to skip down to the middle. All right, it says Christianity's history in some parts of sub-Saharan Africa actually extends to the 4th century CE and over the millennia has inspired the conversion of millions of adherents. Intriguing new evidence supports the idea that many Africans in the diaspora are not only well acquainted with Christianity in places like Portuguese Congo and Angola, but also knew about the black Christians of Ethiopia and Egypt, and therefore thought of Christianity as an indigenous faith initially independent of and not wholly dominated by white slave owners, making them more likely to embrace it once in America. Now, does that sound like something that was beat into your ancestors? Or could it be possible that the historic evidence demonstrates empirically that Christianity has been in Africa since nearly the very beginning on the day of Pentecost, and that there were millions of Africans that were already Christians of their own free will prior to colonization and to the transatlantic slave trade? I've got a whole folder full of West African scholarly sources that talks about this. So when I say something, I'm not just talking out of my neck. I'm talking about something because it's dear and precious to me. My history of my people are precious to me, and I'm sick of people lying on them. Please go back and do some research. Ask me for the sources. Ask me for the evidence, and I'll give it to you, because I want you to be more educated than what you're demonstrating on this particular post. Please don't mistake my passion for trying to be disrespectful or whatever, but I'm sick of the disrespect to my ancestors, and I'm sick of the mistruths. All right, so I got love for you. I really do. I love you, but stop this mess.